Are we live? Please tell me in the chat if you can actually see me. For people that aren't on the forums, you may not know I'm running this by myself. So, you know. Oh, great. Hold on. There we go. Otherwise, we're going to have a weird echo. Okay. I'm delighted to hear we are actually live. Welcome. I am completely alone in my house, which is a rare experience. The cat had to go to an emergency vet appointment. So I am here with all of you. 2 donuts, which feels a little excessive. And we have Brexit to talk about. And I'm kind of all alone, just like the UK is about to be all alone. Thank you. I hope the cat is okay as well. Oh, by the way, because I'm doing this all alone, I cannot put chat on the screen. I can see chat, but I should probably be reading things off. Brianna said, I hope the cat is okay. She should... she has been having eye issues for a while, which I've mentioned on some previous live streams. She's actually technically had them her whole life. She has feline herpes, which is most cats have. Like 98% of cats have feline herpes, just like most humans have a variant of herpes simplex 1. However, she is one of the few cats that has one of the complications from it, so it didn't really start to be a huge problem until she was like 3 or 4. But herpes in cats attacks their eyes, as far as I understand, and she has been having particularly trouble with one of her eyes for on and off for a while, and she actually got surgery to... It turned out she had 2 problems going on, and she had surgery like a year or 2 ago to correct one of the problems, which was that her eyelashes were growing on the inside of her eye. So it was irritating it, and then it was making the virus attack them while they were irritated. One of her eyes is now pretty much totally fine. However, the other eye she's pretty much had no vision out of it all year. So she's actually been in a car several times this year, and I've been in a car 0 times. So that tells you something. So, I don't know, it's also like, it went way beyond what a normal vet can do a while ago, so she has to go to the kitty ophthalmologist, which of course there aren't that many of, so there's one specific ophthalmologist she has to go to. So, she has to go, this was like, regularly, she gets medications 3 times a day, she's on 3 different medications, which are all eye drops. We put her in a burrito. She's very chill about it. She often comes to our laps because she knows she gets treats after she gets the eye drops. So she's a very good kitty. But when we give her eye drops, we tend to keep an eye on her eyes. And yesterday she seemed to be in a lot of pain. So she's just on antibiotics, mostly antivirals. And, I think a combination of both. And we have painkillers available, but she becomes very tired like humans do when you put them on or when you put them on painkillers. And she's mostly like normal, happy kitty. She has been sleeping more lately, and it's also winter. And when you Google, is my cat sleeping too much? They're like, probably not, because they're a cat and they sleep 20 hours a day. So yesterday, it seemed like she was actually in pain. Like, she was sitting on my lap, but she was, hissing at nothing. She hissed just, at the situation, which is a cat's way of being like, I hate what's happening to me. So we gave her the painkiller last night, and incidentally, it was when we did karaoke. We had my work holiday karaoke party, so it was, home karaoke, Zoom karaoke, and the cat was just, a melted high cat. It was pretty much like she got stoned before the karaoke party. And a cat stoned is very funny because they essentially kind of are high already. They experience the world similar to how humans experience it when they're high, as far as I can understand. So an even higher cat is kind of amusing. But Denise said, my first cat had chronic eye ulcers. She was never impressed with my ointment and drop administration skills. Dora did really not like the drops, but she's really come around to it. We have not trained her in any other way, but we seem to have trained her specifically around the association of getting the eye drops and the treats. So, yeah. Hopefully she'll be okay. It's looking like there's a possibility that her cornea has actually been up. This might be a little gory. If you're not into gory, I'm not going to super describe it, but it looks like her cornea may have actually been like eaten by the virus. Like, it seems like a significant portion of it is gone. The hard thing about cats' eyes is that they have an inner eyelid. They have like two eyelids, and because of that, if they're inflamed, it's often hard to even see the eye because there's like a second eyelid in there. So it's looking likely that she may need to get it removed. The thing that's been very frustrating to me is she's gone to the cat ophthalmologist, like the cat eye doctor, several times, and they just don't have good information about, like, they can't tell if the eye is, like, I don't really understand. It seems like they're very unable to figure out if there is damage, like if the eye is like worth saving or if it would be better if it's removed. Like, it just seems like I don't know anything about cat eyes, and I know that, but it feels like to me, if that's your specialty, you should be able to, if you're seeing the cat in person and opening its eye and examining it, you should have better information. But obviously I know both cats and eyes are very complex, so hopefully she's gonna be okay. She has to have surgery and get her eye removed. I don't think it's gonna impact her quality of life if she does get it removed, because she's been living without vision on that side of her body for so long. It's not gonna be a change for her. So hopefully it just reduces the amount of medication she needs to be on, and hopefully if it is pain that is happening, the pain. So anyway, that is all the detail about the horrible eyeball things. Sorry, Claire. Claire was like, please do not go into any more detail about horrible eyeball things. I won't put pictures up or anything, but that is what's going on with the cat, and that is why I am all alone. But since there are only 12 days till the final deadline for Brexit, I thought we could talk about Brexit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I only have 2 holiday sweaters, and one of them is perfect for this. So I have this London Underground. If you can't tell, these are the double-decker buses. This is from the London Transport Museum, one of my favorite museums on earth. And it is a child's sweater, so it is quite warm because it is quite tight, because I got a child's sweater because it was cheaper. So Denise says you can send me pictures. I almost posted some pictures. The thing is, it's a little hard to tell, but so yes, it's very exciting. I also like it because it doesn't have any like Christmas symbols on it. It's just like a general holiday bus themed sweater. But I thought it would be good for Brexit edition. How do we want, because there's 2 donuts, do we want to do a little bit of donut, or should I like set the stage for Brexit? I'm worried I'm going to get going off on Brexit, and obviously it's been 5 years in the making, so there's a lot to cover. What I'm going to try to focus on is what is happening in the next 12 days with Brexit, but I will give you a little primer because I have been following this a lot more closely than the average person on Earth. However, there's still a lot of stuff that's like, it seems like there's a lot of stuff that's like confusing and undefined to the people who are literally negotiating it, and their entire job has been negotiating it for years. So, oh, I see that Erin is apparently waiting for the cat right now. What kind of kitten news updates are we getting? Are you giving it via messages? Please give some kitty news updates. I will read them out. So Erin is in the chat for people that are watching the replay, and then we're gonna do the donuts. I will set the stage, talk about a donut, come back to Brexit, eat another donut. Laura says, yay for not Christmas holiday stuff. I got wrapping paper I thought was holiday neutral, then I got home and saw it had Merry Christmas printed all over it. So when I worked at Starbucks, I think I can say that. When I worked at Starbucks, like, there was a huge controversies because, you know, the whole, like, American narrative, I think it's specifically American, this narrative that like Christmas is getting secularized, because if you recognize that other holidays that people might not celebrate Christmas, might not be Christian, then clearly you're destroying their religious holiday, because for some people, it's very important to them that Christianity be the dominant narrative at all times, and if it isn't, it's like, you know, for some people, they feel like Christianity in the world they're kind of like the child that's like, if you're not paying attention to me all the time, then clearly you're trying to destroy me or something like that. Like, it's like the kid in your class you don't like. Anyway, sorry. I like how I'm talking about politics, religion, and like gruesome cat things. I'm really making this a live stream for everyone. But when I worked at Starbucks, there was like a huge hootenanny about the fact that their like holiday cups are not printed with Christmas stuff on them, but like their way of both siding it. I live on an emergency route, so that's just a fact of my life. Sirens all the time. So their way of like making it not Christmassy but like holiday-y was that their holiday cups just said Merry Coffee all over them, which is just like, oof, so much. Oh no! Okay, kitten news update is her cornea is in fact punctured from the virus and has been leaking, so the only option now is to take her eye out. Oh, poor kitten. That is very sad. Oro said I can make her an eye patch if you want. I do not think that she will tolerate an eye patch, but maybe she would. The other eye, Josie asked how the other eye is doing. The other eye was looking fine. The problem is that, like, it has flared up in the past from the herpes. So I think one of the worries we have is, like, if there's one less eye to attack, then, you know, what's going to happen. Erin, did you get... So Erin says, I think she will be much happier once the painful eye is out. Poor baby. I hope that's true. Poor thing. So that has been what's happening with it. And it sounds like she will... So I guess the question I have is she going to have to continue on the antibiotics? I mean, obviously she's going to need to take some stuff post-surgery, but I would be very curious to see if this is going to reduce the amount of medication she has to take long-term. Brianna said, I knew a beautiful cat who had no eyes, cancer, I think, and seemed happy and fine. I have known several blind cats, with or without eyes, but blind, that are fine. So we're not super worried about that. The thing that I'm worried about surgery recovery. Obviously, I'm worried about surgery. It's traumatic for humans and cats alike. She bounced back really quickly after her last surgery, which was obviously like slightly less invasive, but I hope it'll be okay. Dean says, wait, this is Dora we're talking about? Oh, noes. Yeah, Dora has been having eye troubles for a long time, but it has gotten much worse, and she's at an emergency vet appointment, which is why Erin is updating in the chat right now. Well, let's do a hard switch to talking away from gory kitty things, and it sounds like the cat might be back before the end of this live stream. And Erin. Let me introduce you to the donuts. Then we'll talk about Brexit for a little bit, and then I will eat some of the donuts. Okay, so introducing you to donut number one. Oh, I gotta turn on my donut light. So this is donut number one. And it is... Oh, it's way harder to do autofocus all by myself. I'll have to figure it out. I think the key thing to get, though, is it has, like, gold sparkles on it. Like, actual sparkles? And it's like, holiday nog flavored. So that one's very exciting. And these close-ups aren't very good. And then this one is gingerbread. And it smells incredible. So those are the two donuts. I'm hoping I can, like, actually get closer up I'm worried if I set the autofocus for the donut, then it's never going to be autofocus back for me. So, yes, this is very great. If you're here this week and you missed last week, next week's live stream is actually going to be a day earlier. It's going to be on Christmas Day, which is Friday. We're going to do it at the same time. And then we have an optional, so we're going to do like a regular live stream, except it's going to be a Chinese food mukbang, because that's what I do on Christmas. So I eat Chinese food and watch a movie. And then following that, we are going to do an optional, it's optional anyway. The live stream is always optional. But we're going to do a Die Hard viewing. And we're still working out exactly how that's going to be. But that will be, we're not going to obviously do that on YouTube because we can't stream Die Hard on YouTube. But we are going to be doing the mukbang on YouTube. And same thing, it's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific time, so 8 p.m. Eastern. So, and it will be on Boxing Day for the Australians. So, if I eat food during a mukbang, is it a Zoom picnic? Correct. It is. I love how Zoom has become like Zoom has become like Kleenex, you know? Okay, so Brexit. I'm going to give you the basic primer of where we're at. If people want to, in the chat, ask any questions that they have, obviously I'm not going to be able to answer every question. But if you have general questions about, like, what is going on? Why does it keep seeming like they have deadlines? What is still up in the air? Just ask those so that I can make sure to answer them. So, Brexit, basic terms, is that Britain has been part of the EU, which is European Union, since its inception. They voted as a country to leave, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union in 2016. However, the European Union is not just simply like a club that you are part of. It has a bunch of things built into it. And the many things that are built into it is the free movement of goods and people. So it's essentially like in one foul swoop, it is trade deals, it is labor regulations, it is access to markets, which is a big one, and the fact that there are no tariffs. There also, everyone in the European Union, it operates as a single market. So if you have a trade agreement with the European Union, you suddenly get a trade agreement with every single country that is involved in the European Union. It is also a lawmaking body. So it passes environmental regulations, labor regulations, all of a lot of those standards are set at the European Union level rather than being set at the country level. And it is a huge market. The European Union is within the European Union, one of the largest trading markets within it is the United Kingdom. So United Kingdom has always kind of been, let's say, a little more, it's always kind of acted like it's a little less in the European Union than a lot of other countries. However, it is bound legally under all of this kind of stuff. And the reason it has taken so long since the initial vote was that there was nothing, when the European Union was formed, there was no plan for countries to exit it. There was no set up procedure. And in order to actually exit, to actually leave, all of these regulations that come in one foul swoop, it's kind of like marriage. So marriage is as an institution, in most countries, but in particularly in the United States, marriage as an institution it comes bundled with all these legal protections, right of survivorship, inheriting things, tax things. All of this stuff comes in one big bundle with one agreement. It's though that existed, but the ability to dissolve that union didn't exist on the other side. So before same-sex marriage passed at the federal level in the U.S., a lot of couples that had same-sex marriages in their states would still have to form all of these different agreements if they wanted to actually have most of those bundle of rights at the federal level. And that was one of the problems that they have, like, really ended up having quite extensively with, like, same-sex marriage passed, but then there was, like, oh, does this undo some of the, like, domestic partnerships that agree? Like, it was essentially like a basket of rights. And the same thing is kind of happening with the European Union. They signed, like, the UK had signed onto the European Union. It had gotten married to all of these other countries. And there was all of these things that came as far as decision-making power, security, borders, people, like immigration, trade, all of these things that came with that. However, there was no process for divorce. Divorce doesn't really exist. So, yes, Dean is saying, except the European Union started out as something called the Common Market, which was a different entity. And then it gradually evolved into a political union with no votes on that process. So that's actually one of the reasons, and I mean, it got a lot more complicated than why they left. But yes, like, the European Union is one of these entities that kind of merge everybody. So initially it was kind of just a trade deal, but then the European Union became more of an entity. And there's actually 3 or 4 different overlapping things that aren't necessarily all included with the European Union. So countries can be part of, like, the European Union, but not be part of the euro. So the euro is a common currency, but it is not that is used by countries in the European Union. However, it is not used by all countries in the European Union. And entry into the Eurozone being the not physical, like, countries, but the concept of all countries that are within the European Union that also use the euro as their currency. Luckily, we are not dealing with a currency situation, which is because the sterling, Great British Pound, has always been an extremely strong currency. It was the largest reserve currency in the world for a long time. So they never wanted to be part of the euro. They never tried to become part of the euro. There's also the European Economic Commission, trade. There's different, like, entities and bodies for it, but you can be part of the European Economic Area without being in the European Union. So a good example would be Iceland. Iceland is not a voting member in the European Union. It's not part of the European policy decision-making body. However, they are part of the European Economic Area, which means that they have a lot of trade restrictions. However, they are not part of the free movement of people. So one of the parts of the European Union is that there is free movement of people, which means that if you are a citizen of any EU country, you can move and work in any other EU country and expect the same rights as a citizen from that country. So you're both an EU citizen in the larger sense that you have rights in all of the EU countries, but you are also your passport will be from the country that is part of it, which is, yeah, it is like multiple Venn diagrams, as complex as it sounds. And let's, like, not even get into, like, there's different things in between that. There's actually a very kind of funny but also confusing YouTube video that tries to, like, separate all the different like, alliances that everyone is in. I'll try to, like, find it and link to it in the notes for this later. So essentially, there was no plans for exit from this. And what they are dealing with is that the argument for leaving. So all along, this has been, like, a series of negotiations between the European Union, whose chief negotiator is Michel Barnier, and then the negotiator on the UK side, which has changed multiple times. Right now, it is Boris Johnson, who is the prime minister, who was one of the people that pushed heavily for the Brexit vote. He was not prime minister at the time that they were pushing for that. So now Boris Johnson, who is, a lot of people think, like, the UK's Trump, although I don't think that's fair. He's in my opinion, quite a lot smarter than Trump. And the big thing with Boris Johnson and the European Union is that he has actually, like, a pretty good, Boris Johnson as a person, he's pretty much well liked by the people that he's negotiating with. However, they are negotiating as a body just through this one negotiator, Michel Barnier. And Boris Johnson is, like, essentially at the point where a lot of what they are trying to push for is, like, individual, like, go to every single country in the European Union and be like, we have a thing to work out with you. We have a thing to work out with you. And the European Union is like, no, none of that. That's not the point of the European Union. You need to talk to Michel Barnier. But the heads of state inform the list of demands and requirements that Michel Barnier has when he is negotiating for the European Union. And that's the big thing, is he's bound by that. Those are the representatives from all of the different countries that are part of the European Union. They have given those demands, and he doesn't have that much leeway in order to, like, 6 of one, half dozen the other. So there has been numerous points in the past, like, I can't even name the number of times where they have essentially said, oh no, we're looking at a no-deal Brexit. And a no-deal Brexit means essentially they don't have an official document in place by the time the UK has officially left. So a lot of people call this the transition period right now, which is there's been phasing out of various things, and they all officially end on December 31st, 2020. And that date is set in stone. There's no ability to change that. So they're not debating at this point. When they say no deal Brexit, there's no debate that Brexit is happening. And some parts of Brexit kind of already have happened. The other thing is that they, yes, really are working up till the last minute in order to actually make these decisions about what is included in these deals. And I think it's worth discussing what kind of the various things that are included in this are, because it isn't just like one thing, but there's been various things that have already been worked out. So, for example, they have already worked out immigration. So, people that were living in the UK that were EU citizens that previously just would have had right to free movement, they already had, like, set up the forms to essentially apply for indefinite leave to remain, which is kind of the, it's the UK equivalent of a green card, if you're not familiar, but it essentially is like permanent residency rights, but not necessarily citizenship, which is a different process. But indefinite leave to remain, it was negotiated long ago, and all of those people know that they have to be physically present in the UK by December 31st, 2020, and then they have up till sometime mid next year to actually prove that they were there, established, and a resident in order to get indefinite leave to remain. On the flip side, that's also true for UK citizens that live abroad, because it's true both ways. There's been free movement back and forth, and because of that, there are plenty of UK residents who do live abroad. So a lot of that stuff has kind of been worked out, but there are a number of sticking points. And I think one of the important things to remember when we talk about the sticking points is that the UK is not just Britain. The UK is a whole collection of crown dependencies, which are islands like Jersey, Isle of Man, and islands, and the Great Britain, which is the island that consists of Wales, Britain, and Scotland. And then is also Northern Ireland, which is extremely important because it has a land border with Ireland, which is going to continue, the Republic of Ireland, which is going to continue to be part of the EU. They have no interest in leaving the EU, and also not huge fans, generally, Republic of Ireland, of United Kingdom. But Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, even though it is not physically located on the same island of Great Britain. So Josie says, so the UK treats the EU like the USA treats NAFTA. Well, right now that all of the EU treats each other like we treat NAFTA. But yes, the UK right now is essentially trying to demand and ask for free trade, essentially, So like NAFTA, so that's the North American Free Trade Agreement. That is a trade agreement which has actually been replaced, but it did exist for a long time. It's been replaced by a new one by Trump. Did that happen this year? I think it happened this year. Oh my God. This year has been so long. Okay, so NAFTA is a trade agreement, free trade of goods, not of people, but visa free. But NAFTA is just a trade agreement, and it is between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, which makes up North America. There's also Central America and South America. So we have free trade, and that means essentially that we can't have tariffs, which means we can't have taxes on goods that we import between those countries. And we essentially have that also, because it's a trade agreement, include something called level playing field, which will come up in the Brexit negotiations. Level playing field essentially says you should not be able to, if we are trading certain goods, sometimes it's all goods, but often it will be specific goods. If we are trading certain goods, you are required to follow the same rules and regulations, and you can't, as a government, decide if we're operating as a single market. You can't say like, well, all U.S. manufacturers of, for example, steel are going to get all of this state government support, and then that is going to allow them to undercut the prices of Canadian steel manufacturers. So that's what happens in trade negotiations. I don't want to get into NAFTA too much because Trump is extremely unique on trade, just generally. This isn't like an American specific thing. Trump has been very weird for trade, and frankly will be interesting for international macroeconomists to study for the rest of time, because it has been very unique. So yes, the European market is a single market, just like NAFTA is. However, it's more diverse, like it's more broad than NAFTA is. NAFTA does not include people. You can't, if you're from Mexico or Canada or the US, you can't just have immediate live and work permissions and access to healthcare, all of which are part of the EU. So, has the UK shown any willingness to set up inspections for goods going between Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Okay, so Northern Ireland was for quite a long time one of the sticking points in negotiations. The good news is that mostly has already been resolved based on an agreement between Republic of Ireland and the UK. So they essentially did kind of work it out already. So the big concern is for people in Northern Ireland, because they share an island, and they don't want it to turn back into how it was during the Troubles, where there were checkpoints along the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Even though they are two countries, they want free movement of trade and goods. And this is also extremely important for people who live there. And this isn't just because a lot of people commute across the border, and actually work in both countries. This is extremely important to supermarkets. This is extremely important to any kind of goods, because almost all goods for Northern Ireland come through the EU. And also for the entirety of the Irish market, including Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and Republic of Ireland, that's part of the EU. They get a lot of the Republic of Ireland is going to stay in the EU, but they actually get a lot of their goods through the United Kingdom right now. And that's because, their goods are generally marked in English. They have a long colonial history with the United Kingdom, and because of that a lot of their trade is accessed via there. Also, they're not that far apart. It's like a 1.5 hour ferry ride. I've done it before. So, a lot of that trade comes via the Holyhead in Wales, which actually, interestingly, Wales overwhelmingly voted for Brexit. Scotland voted against it. If you're looking at, how we love to look at states here in the UK and precincts and stuff like that. Well, you can look by country in the United Kingdom about how they voted with Brexit. So they want it to be a seamless border, and they've already kind of made that agreement. There's not going to be people, when they're moving across the border, there will be like some checks, but it's not going to be physical checks in cars. It's not going to be like when you're going the US-Mexico border and you've got this long line of cars. It's going to be like cameras and stuff like that. There's not going to be physical stopping of people. But they have they essentially have a 3-month like grace period. They are going to be having to do checks of goods, which lorries, as they call them, trucks, semis, as we'd call them here, carrying goods back and forth. There will have to be checks. And that is because the EU has extremely stringent requirements as far as the type of... there's really stringent requirements as far as like what kinds of meat, poultry, dairy, things that they will let in. And because of that, there needs to be a grace period because between COVID anyway, but they are extremely worried about not being able to like pull off all of this, and businesses need time to adapt. Like grocery stores need time to actually adapt to the new things. So there is a 3-month grace period, and then there's a 6-month grace period for some of the stuff that's harder to check. So like sausages, for example, have a 6-month grace period from January 1st, 2021. In Northern Ireland. And that is a specific thing that they've worked out between Ireland and Northern Ireland as far as this is to make sure that like grocery store shelves don't go bare in either Ireland or Northern Ireland, because it's risk for both of them. So so Scott, the UK has shown they've already actually we're worried about Northern Ireland and we're worried about Republic of Ireland as far as trade stuff, but the actual movement of goods on Ireland as a island, all of Ireland, not just Republic of Ireland. It's confusing to say. There's a lot of Irelands involved, but the movement of goods on the ports there are going to be fine. They are going to be diverting some things are going to be going through a different port. So they are going to essentially be checking things into a different port in order to like get them in and out of Northern Ireland. So they've kind of worked that out. It's fascinating and interesting what's going on that, but they're very concerned about maintaining supply in supermarkets. There will be some physical inspection at borders, but that's all going to be happening at seaports. None of it is going to be happening on the land border. And seaports are still really important because that's how most goods get into the Republic of Ireland as well. And there is a trusted trader scheme, which is the trusted trader scheme is going to happen between Northern Ireland and Britain, or Northern Ireland and Ireland, which essentially says that like all the traders there are not going to have tariffs imposed. So any goods that are going back and forth between those two countries is not going to be a problem because they have this trusted trader scheme. The big thing is they need a grace period because traders, businesses like supermarkets and everything are going to need some time to adjust to the paperwork. So that's the really big concern there. Northern Ireland about like 6 months ago, I think was like one of the big sticking points because essentially the EU really wanted to make sure they had a protected border, but they could not violate the Good Friday Agreement because it took a long time to get to the Good Friday Agreement, which is what made for all of these open borders and everything between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. No deal Brexit means no one in the playground will be talking to us. Or if they do, everyone else will be in a sulk with them for talking to us. It's complicated, like a multi-partner divorce. Correct. Yes. And so, one last thing about the deadline, and we're going to come back. There's so much more to talk about, like where things have gotten stuck. But I'll tell you kind of what is going on with the deadline. So it's happening right now. And I say that even though it's like almost 2 a.m. in the UK, there's stuff happening right now. And hold on, my phone is blowing up. I just want to make sure like no one's waiting to get in or something. Sorry, I got very distracted by my text message. This is why I should not check my phone during live streams. Okay, so right now negotiations are going on, and the big thing is that the MEPs in the UK have said that on the 28th of December, they will do a vote of consent for if an agreement is reached by Sunday midnight Central European time, which is soon, very soon, today, in UK time. So that is the big deadline. France has essentially, so all of the individual countries are making their statements be known. And the spokesperson for Macron, who is the Prime Minister of France, he said, wait, is he president or prime minister? Prime minister. So the spokesperson for Macron was like, we will not be held over a barrel to get this done by Sunday night. However, no one is there's going to be problems both ways. It's not like the UK is going to be the most screwed, and it's not like the European Union is going to be the most screwed. Both are going to be very screwed if they don't have a deal for Brexit, and that needs to be passed by December 31st, because if there's no deal, markets, there's a lot of things that just disappear without a good plan for it. And there have been a number of like trials to try to figure out what things are going to look like. One of the big problems is Kent. So the channel that goes between that is the motorway that connects in the sea between the channel between Great Britain and France, that has a like 5-mile long queue right now of trucks backed up because there is trying to get goods across both ports right now. Everybody's kind of freaking out and trying to stockpile supplies. So, and what I will say is that this no-deal Brexit threat has been around for over a year. So there has already been work to stockpile goods and medications. But we are looking at like smaller businesses are doing a little bit more freaking out because it looked like a deal was going to come. And now it's starting to look like maybe it won't again. So we're going to see. England tends to dominate political events and discourse, which annoys everyone else in the Union, and opinions between the home nations vary greatly. Oh, opinions on England? Vary greatly? Never happened before in history. Yeah. So, and I will also say that, like, from as far as a government perspective, like I said, parts of this transition have already happened. So, even before COVID, all of the people that have been voting members of the UK members of the voting aren't necessarily British. The UK members that are part of the voting body of the European Union, they had their last day pre-COVID. They like got clapped out or whatever by all their friends. And those are bureaucrats. They're literally bureaucrats. But like they have already left, the seat in Brussels of the European Union and, moved back home or whatever. So, there's also one other big deal going on with supply chains, which is just today, they essentially U-turned on and up tiers for tier restrictions for a lot of the UK today, which is like, if you have friends in the UK or if you're from the UK, I think we have one person who's still awake, Dean. But if you're following what's going on, like everybody's actually just mostly, especially if they're in the southwest of England, London, they are very upset because the tier restrictions just got upped. The NHS is dealing with unprecedented, lack of ICU beds. They are behind on labs and testings for routine procedures. And they seem to have found a new COVID strain. And so they essentially told everyone that they were saying, oh, you can have Christmas, but you can only have it with one other household or something. You can have a Christmas bubble that you go into. Well, just today, they essentially made it so you can't celebrate with anyone from your household if you are in tier 4 areas, which includes most of London. And because of that, there is even more concerns. And if you're in a tier 4 area, you're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to go overseas. And that means that a lot of people that were looking at rushing to be able to get goods, and maybe stockpile, and like get stuff from France are now not able to leave. So yeah. Meeting up at Christmas is canceled for a lot of the Southeast and London, basically, which is like, it also was canceled for a lot of people around the entire world. The big thing was that it was a very quick U-turn from, there was already very tight restrictions in place for a lot of London, but they tightened them even more so last minute. And I think that has been very hard and is affecting what maybe some people had plans for as far as leaving. So let's eat a donut. And yes, should I eat the gingerbread one or should I eat the sparkly one? It's like, I really want to capture just how sparkly it is. You can kind of see the gold there. If I do it for a long time, no, I'm sorry that it's just a blurry picture, but it is deliciously sparkly. All right. I'm going to do this gingerbread one. Oh, man. Can someone explain to me why it has like a square on top? Is that a traditional gingerbread shape? So as you can see on the inside, it's like a very dense donut, but that's gingerbread. It smells incredibly gingerbready. It actually is the perfect amount of glaze. It's very hard, if you can hear that. But yeah, it's like relatively incredible. Brandon says it is an old-fashioned style of donut. So is old-fashioned the name of the style of donut, or is it just old-fashioned donut? So, why, though? Help me understand. So, the old-fashioned donut is a variety of cake donut prepared in the shape of a ring with tapered edges around it. It's getting stuck behind my teeth. It's really good. I don't know what other review to give. It tastes like gingerbread. The icing is like excellently thick. It's very good. Okay, sorry. I got distracted by my phone again. I know I shouldn't check my text messages, but it's been blowing up. The gingerbread donut is incredible. I turned that on to Do Not Disturb, so it stopped buzzing every, like, 10 seconds. That's not even my phone. That's just, like, a random iPod over there that's connected to the same group chat. Gingerbread is a vegetable, actually. I'm pretty sure. I feel like it's the kind of thing you find in, like, fruit baskets. I think I'm going to just finish, like, most of this donut. It's really good. All right. Give me more Brexit questions. Okay. We have, how does Brexit affect Scotland? All right. Now that I've just stuffed all of that donut into my mouth. Now that I've stuffed all that donut into my mouth, let's talk about how it'll affect Scotland. So, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is not Britain, despite Britain's best interest and efforts to make that true. I guess it's kind of the other way. Britain has tried to make everything the United Kingdom. So, Scotland, as you may not know, voted in their own referendum prior to Brexit about whether or not they were going to leave the United Kingdom and be a country in their own right. Again, they have before. Lots of trading of kings and queens, and then, you know, some takeovers and some wars and everything. But they are part of the United Kingdom now with Wales, Northern Ireland, the Crown dependencies, and Britain. Scotland voted against Brexit, but it doesn't matter how they voted. Just like if your state voted for a different person for president than got elected, you don't get to be like, well, my state's not part of this. So they've been wrapped up in this whole Brexit thing all along. And since they are located, like Wales, in the same island as Britain, there hasn't been that much exclusive negotiations so far about Scotland, because really they don't have any ports there that are major ports. Wales has Holyhead, which is one of the big ports with Ireland. It goes from, like, that's where a lot of ferries go. That's where a lot of goods flow via the EU, via Ireland. Holyhead, Wales has been a big discussion. I've been there. Hey, I can't remember how to say hey in Welsh. Sorry. And the Scotland is really just, unfortunately, kind of begrudgingly along for this ride. They are a member of, Parliament, and so they are able to voice their concerns in that way. Versus Northern Ireland, which is a member of Parliament, has members in Parliament. However, the members for their most prominent party refuse to show up in Parliament, so they get elected, and they don't believe in the British rule of Northern Ireland, and so they just don't vote or show up to their jobs, which is, I think, surprisingly badass as far as, like, a thing to do. But that is not true with Scotland, no matter how begrudgingly. So, Scotland is everything that I am discussing for Brexit is actually, it's actually UK exit, but it didn't have the same ring. So it's not just Britain leaving, it's the entirety of the United Kingdom. So we talked about the vote of consent. So what's stuck right now? Well, there's two things that they've been stuck on for the past couple weeks. And it seems like the main thing that has come down to is fisheries. And fisheries sound relatively mild when you're talking about a really big trade agreement, but it's incredibly important because the largest fish market, like one of the largest fish markets in the world, and certainly the largest one consumed by the rest of the EU, is the United Kingdom, and a lot of it is the British coast. So 75% of the total fish trade among the EU is from the UK fish export. So, and it's a lot of also the very high value species. I don't know a lot about fish, but I know, like, there are high value species, and most of those come from British waters. So Britain has wanted to essentially say we should get 6 to 12 nautical miles around the British coast, and those should be fished exclusively by UK vessels. And they essentially want to say, like, hey, this is our coast, so we should be able to get all the fish from it in order to sell it to the UK or to the EU. And the turnover for fish of UK vessels in British waters is about 850 million a year. And the turnover is like, I think closer to 650 million from other EU member states in British waters. So they are trying to do like a handover or negotiation that is a percentage of that EU member states' non-British flagged vehicles that is handed over by dollar amount. So they're saying, like, essentially the EU, the latest EU offer as of today was 162.5 million, which is about 25% of the catch would be UK flagged vessels exclusively. But remember, French and Belgian vessels have been there all along. They got a lot of islands that keep switching who's in charge of them. You know, those waters are like, there's plenty of French vessels that have been like hanging out up there for a long time. So, the other thing was that, like, initially the UK government was trying to say, like, well, in addition, we needed to define what a boat flying under the UK flag was, because the idea was like, well, do you just like scoop up one British person or one Scot and stick them on a boat, and then you can stick a UK flag up, and then it would count as a UK vessel. The Prime Minister, like, really backed down on, like, this idea that to fly the UK flag, you had to be majority British-owned vessel, because a lot of these fishing vessels are owned by companies. So they're, like, they've got some flexibility in there. What I will say is the House of Commons essentially already said that MPs might not be voting on this fishing deal until next year. So... a lot is coming down to fish, but I think the trade stuff outside of fish is, more important to everyday life. So I know a lot of people were asking about, like, are people stockpiling medications? What is going on? And yes, this is a very big concern. The NHS is so it's a nationalized health system for all citizens of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland. They all get access to the National Health Service, which is paid for via taxes. It is a single-payer healthcare market. And it has had its own regulation procedures for, various medicines and goods that they allow into the system from a regulatory level there. However, everything that made by pharmaceutical manufacturers in the UK, which is not a huge market in the UK, and made by European markets, those were the same set, essentially, of, like, approval. So if a drug was approved for use in the EU, it might not be bought by the NHS and provided to patients by the NHS, but it would be approved for use. That being said, things like various types of medications that are used, like, for example, there are medications that use strains of cannabis. It's not medical marijuana, but they use cannabis. So some seizure medications are produced in the Netherlands. And those are things that are going to break down because there isn't necessarily a legal way for them to import that right now. And there are patient advocate groups that have spoken out about the fact that, like, they have children that have epilepsy that rely on these medications to control their seizures, and that have had great success with these medications, which have been for certain types of seizure disorders have been, like, life-changing for a lot of younger patients, that now they're, with a no-deal Brexit, we're looking at no way to ensure access to those medications. So, yes, people are kind of asked to being stocked up. That being said, we've looked at a no-deal Brexit several times before, so they had previously made a stockpile of medications while they still had free trade and a single market with the EU, like national stockpiles of medications. What I will say is that they have not admitted whether or not they have used up any of the stockpile that they have previously been building up. And this stockpile is not necessarily at an individual level. This is, like, at a NHS level. So this is local clinics, everything like that. They are telling people to expect, I think, so they asked for a 6-month stockpile. Previously, they've stockpiled drugs, but they just revised that to ask for also medical devices, because medical devices are also regulated. So those are things like pumps, like IV pumps, and why can I think of no other medical devices? Give me some medical devices in the, EKG strips, whatever. Various different kinds of medical devices that aren't necessarily drugs. They've always come, in via Europe. And so they're essentially asking people to expect like red tape and logistics when things come UK through ports. They kind of don't have all the paperwork worked out. And one of the reasons they don't have all the paperwork worked out is that they still haven't gotten a trade agreement in place. So the port, I think 6 months ago, they did a trial of trying to see what the customs procedure would be at ports, where they actually did all the paperwork and filled it in the ports, and that caused really big delays. They are not doing that trial, even though we are 12 days away from them having to do whatever that paperwork might be, because they have such a large supply chain issue right now of people trying to get British goods back and forth between the EU and the UK. So, ventilators. Why? Of course, ventilators is a medical device. I will say, I don't know how the NHS stockpile ventilators, I'm sure there would have been maybe more of those already stocked up pre-COVID and stuff like that. I think disposable, so ventilators are one of those things where obviously we need them. They are a thing we need. But as a medical device, they are relatively large. And we are talking about 3 to 6 months. And you don't really purchase, outside of a global respiratory pandemic, you don't really purchase respirators at a rate where that's going to affect patient care. But when you are talking about medical devices that are something that someone might need implanted immediately and goes into them, like a pacemaker, or I bet there's a cute British name for pacemakers. I don't know if you call them the same thing, but you're thinking about things that are consumable or implantable devices. IUDs are a great example of an implantable medical device. So things like that, silicone, tubing for intestine replacements, that kind of stuff are medical devices that are more consumable. Oh, pacemaker. Darn, Dean, I was really hoping you had a cute British name, because you always have cute British names. UK government people saying that the Royal Navy can help enforce fishing rights also didn't leave the best impression everywhere else. Bad memories. Yeah, so that's the thing. No one has good memories of the British Navy, and we really don't want to give them power to enforce fishing rights because colonialism. So, yeah. Yeah, ticker keeper upper, that sounds very British, but you have to say it. Ticker keeper upper. I don't know. Sorry, maybe that's rude. I delight in the British names for things. Okay, so we've talked about drugs and medical devices. We talked a little bit about Ireland. Essentially, I'm going to say don't worry about Ireland, Northern Ireland right now, or Ireland as much, because they have this trusted travelers, the trusted trader scheme going on. It's going to be rough, but they're giving grace periods. They have free movement of lorries across the borders. So yes. So other things that are going on. So from a trade deal, one of the reasons that trade delays are such a big deal is there's just not enough vets to check livestock for food and animal products coming across the border. There's a shortage of labor that is able to do the physical checks needed to do that. There's so much stuff that comes down to software and access to software here, which needs to be worked out in these agreements. IT systems for doing customs and immigration, which is because they didn't have access to the like unified IT systems for custom and integration that they'd been using prior, and they didn't have to previously use those at the ports between, like, they didn't have to use that at that port in Kent at all before. Because of that, like, it's just like software, like not knowing how to like figure out how they are going to do stuff physically. Okay, so there's level playing field is a really big one. And this is actually an economic term that, like, it sounds like it's about sports or something. But this is one of the big sticking points. So right now it seems to come down heavily to fisheries. But the big thing is, like, the common market, the single market that the EU operates, means that there's free movement of people, goods, services, and capital. And because of that, there needs to be fair and open competition, which means essentially that you have to play by the same rules, yes, country I am trading with, as me. Because it would be unfair, for example, if you had free trade with a country, NAFTA, where in one country you could have a prevailing wage that is 1/10 the prevailing wage of the other country. So then you're going to get undercut by way cheaper goods in that market. Or if you provide a ton of government support for one industry and that allows them to undercut the price for this other, it's not a level playing field. Does that make basic sense? Tabby says veterinarian shortage is very interesting. Economists are going to be studying this for the rest of our lives. I feel like I say that like every live stream because this has just really been an unprecedented year. But like Brexit is very fascinating because we don't see this many like agreements try to fall apart all at once. And I think we're going to have some very interesting changes about like labor and everything going on. So, yeah, it is very fascinating to see what that is. So the big thing is that, like, Boris Johnson and the UK, but I'm going to say particularly Boris Johnson, seems very stuck on this idea that, sure, we want to continue to have no tariffs on goods and trade between the two things, but we want to reserve the ability to maybe have tariffs on goods at some point. And, like, essentially, like, there's this idea, like, are they treating the UK differently? And they really are. And they really are, because once the UK exits, it's going to be the largest trading partner with the European Union. And so, like, essentially the EU doesn't want to guarantee the UK the best access continuously to their single market with no tariffs or taxes on goods crossing borders if there's a possibility that companies in the UK could be given state support to undercut their rivals in Europe, if that makes sense. So, yeah, Dean said, Britain has a long history of skewing the playing field in its favor. Let's face it, probably that's why we're chafed against the EU. That is what's chafing against the EU. I think, who did I hear this? I think I heard this on the Economist podcast. It might have been BBC, but it essentially was, people might like Boris Johnson, but no one trusts him. And the reason people don't trust him and the UK in general in these negotiations is that the UK has been doing things by whatever rules they want for a long time. A good example is you have these free movement of people and goods. However, I, as a third-party national, they weren't part of the Schengen zone. And so I had to go through immigration when going from France to the European Union, as did anybody else getting on that train to France. And like, that isn't normal in any other part of Europe. You might have border guards that come stamp you, but in the vast majority of the time, if you take a train between other European countries, nothing. No, nada. So going at the port from Ireland to Holyhead, it's like there's like some dudes with the dogs sitting in Wales just chilling right there. But coming in that port, you know, the main port where stuff flows from continental Europe to the UK, that like they've been playing by their own rules for a long time. History of Western civilization. So, which isn't to say that France and Portugal and Spain have not been doing the same for a very long time, and Rome, back when Rome was a thing. So, anyway. So that's a really big level playing field is where a lot of things come down to. Here are some other interesting things to keep an eye on. So security is one of those things where you don't really think. It's kind of like marriage. You don't always think about the basket of goods that is like part of marriage. But in the EU, there's also all of this access to security stuff. So they have access to the missing persons database that is EU-wide. There is a European arrest warrant, and that European arrest warrant is like, it's valid everywhere in the EU, including currently, for 12 more days, the UK, and it goes vice versa. They get live passenger number records for doing counterterrorism, which is important. And they have a joint arrest system. And prior to having access to all of these things, missing persons database, joint arrest system, they had to manually transfer information between station to station to kind of have that. And all of that, like, access to those systems is part of the bundle of being part of the EU, and that has to also be included in the deal. So that's kind of the basics. Thing to keep an eye on in the coming weeks is actually the Great British Pound is doing surprisingly well right now. It had its big plunge in 2016 when it was going to exit because markets don't like certainty. Right now, it is trading the strongest it has since 2018 vis-a-vis the US dollar. However, the US dollar is, how do I say this? Not doing great these days. I mean, it's still the US dollar. It's still the world reserve currency, but it's not doing great. It's fluctuating a lot. But what I will say, it's nothing like the heights. And there are a lot of people in the foreign exchange world that really do believe the Great British Pound is likely to plunge quite a bit. It is looking more and more likely that we're going to get to a no-deal Brexit. If you want to be heavily amused and maybe slightly enraged, you can watch the video of Boris Johnson, the person that pushed for this 5 years ago for Brexit, being like, yes, people will expect Britain to go the extra mile in negotiations. And I'm like, you are speaking 2 weeks before the deadline as though you're getting extra credit for negotiating the thing you supported. It's just like he's so like chill about it, and it is ridiculous. So, yeah. Dean says, it's in extricating one entity from a decades-long evolved bureaucracy, security system, economic system, with all that implies. Yes. So, I mean, that is largely why... the EU is like, why this is taking so long. This is why it's taken 4 years, is it's like a lot of stuff in there. So, you know, there is a lot of stuff that is like part of the EU like level playing field that we can't even get into, but it's like environmental protections, taxation, workers' rights, state aid, like all that stuff is wrapped up in the level playing field thing. What I will say is it sounds like fisheries, but I will also say that, like, I don't know how many times we've been like, it sounds like they could get a deal if they could just get over this one hurdle. That being said, with essentially 1 day left to finally negotiate this, of which France is like, I don't know, I don't think we have to do this deadline. Meanwhile, like, just to be clear, this is not just Britain that's going to be screwed. It's both the EU and Britain. So the big issue with Brexit at this point seems to be the fisheries. So if they can come up with like fishing rights, water rights around the British coast, these vessels argue about how much salmon get passed back and forth and what is a UK vessel. If they can work that out, it sounds like they have a deal. Who knows? Any other questions about it? Denise says, too late, Dean. I've already started using the word ticker keeper upper. I love it. Extra fish on the side. Correct. SK says, I mean, normally 4 years is fast for just a trade deal. Accurate. And this is not just a trade deal. This is like, we've come down to trade in the end, but like, it's so many things wrapped up. So yeah, it really is. There's really quite a lot. I love how we're in the middle of the night and in the EU and the UK, and we have two very active people in the chat. This is what tier 4 lockdown for folks in the UK and, well, Southwest UK, and the combination of, 24 hours to Brexit is doing to us all. So anybody who doesn't live in that part of the world have questions that they want clarified? Dean says, would I leave you on your own in this? No, I really appreciate it. If I end up moving to the UK to study financial journalism in August, I look forward to diving into several of these. Very detailed. I want to interview some drivers that go in the border between the two. Some port workers. I want to interview a lot of people. Yeah, we're way past time, so let's eat this other donut. This is a nog one, and I am going to try to, adjust. Oh, no. Sorry, I accidentally zoomed. Now we're stuck. Oh, no. This is what happens when I try to do things. Okay. Do you love this high-quality live stream you all are getting right now? This is riveting content. All right, there we go. You can see the sparkles now. It's like gold on it or something. I don't know. It's super cool. Good. All right. Kitten is home. I don't hear the kitten. She must be on her way up the stairs. All right. I'm going to try this. I'm going to, split it. It's a little bit melted from being under the lights, so the top is kind of cracked. It doesn't really smell like nog. It has the exact same icing as the gingerbread one. It's not as hard on the top, though. Anybody have an idea what the gold flakes that are edible are? Because I really don't. Gold leading? I hope not. Oh, leafing. Yeah, I guess you can put gold leafing on it. It's very hard to work with gold leafing, I've found. It is also, gold leaf, even in small quantities, is pretty expensive. And this wasn't an overly expensive donut, so. All right. It doesn't taste like nog. It just has the same delicious topping as the gingerbread one. Hello, kitten. Do you want to be admired by your internet faves? Delicious. Hello. Do you want to come on the internet? Or do you want to be mad for going to the vet? I was going to bring Dora out for you all to see, but she is, currently needs to explore every part of the flat, I think, in order to assure herself that it is still here in all ways. I heard once that cats can't really sense the passing of time. They know time has passed, but they have no idea if it's been half an hour or 2 days. And I don't really know if that's true, but I feel like she acts like that every time she's home. Would you like a kitten? I will take a kitten. Oh, she has a little pink nose because she's been out in the cold. Hello. She says, "Thank you, Mitch, for taking me." Doo-doo-doo. Do you see yourself up there? Hi, kitten. Oh. You wanted to sit on my lap? Oh, all right. That was all the kitten that we're going to get. She's got other plans. She will probably sit on my lap later. She's just trotting around. She seems pretty unconcerned. Although she's got that, that slight hunch that cats get to their back when they're like walking around when they like aren't sure, or they're like, yeah. She's got like a little bit of that hunch. She'll be fine soon. She lets it. She doesn't seem to hate the vet. She just doesn't like having to break up her routine, mostly. But she likes getting to have people fawn over how cute she is and how nice she is. My cat's anxiety response at the vet is to start shedding dandruff like crazy. It's hilarious, even though I feel his pain. Oh, Tabby! Poor Tabby's cat. It's very obvious on. I thought I wanted to be a dermatologist when I was a child, and I had a cat that I would just constantly like pick the dandruff off of, and then I would take the dandruff and put it under microscopes because I thought it was the most interesting thing. I always want donuts by the end of these, so I'm definitely going to have to plan better for the mukbang. I'm actually really excited about it. So normally we do like a family dinner with both sides, In Portland, it's actually quite competitive to get it. One, we don't have a lot of Chinese restaurants in Portland, and two, they open bookings for it the day after Christmas or the day after Thanksgiving, and like if you don't call as soon as they open bookings for Christmas Day, you will end up getting like a 10. You either won't get a spot, or like one year my parents did not believe me because where we're from, there's lots of Chinese restaurants and a lot less people that don't celebrate Christmas. And because of that, it was always very easy you didn't have to make a booking at a Chinese restaurant on Christmas. You just went to a Chinese restaurant and then you went to like the one bar that was open. However, here, a lot of people don't celebrate Christmas because we don't have as much. We have a higher secular population than where I am from. And probably not. The Jewish population is actually higher where I'm from. But anyway, first year my parents moved here, they did not believe me when I was like, no. If you want to make the booking for like everyone, you need to call the day, like as soon as they open the day after Thanksgiving. And they didn't. And we ended up getting a booking at like 10:30 p.m. and we were the last people in there. And it was pretty funny, which is very late to eat dinner. But yes, that's my like only tradition is Chinese food and a movie on Christmas. So I am sad to not have either. It's also probably my last year of living in a neighborhood with a movie theater and a Chinese restaurant. However, oh well. So, you know how time speeds up as you get older? For cats, time is different because they have a different lifespan. Does time speed up as you get older? I don't know that it does. I feel like I was regularly bored as a child with time, so maybe that's true. I never bored as an adult. I chalk that up to better taking care of myself skills. Anyway, I'm going to let you all go. Seems like now everybody just wants to talk about cats. So you all can talk about cats, but unless you have any more Brexit questions, we're already past time and I have a kitten to go cuddle. So I think I'm going to do that. Reminder, Christmas Day, which is Friday next week, our live stream is moved a day earlier. So 5 p.m., same place, same time. However, it will be a Chinese food mukbang. Should be really good. And we are also going to do a viewing of Die Hard. I have never seen Die Hard. I heard it is a Christmas movie. So we are going to do that after that. Details will be on the Oh My Dollar forums, I believe. Do we know what the 2021 forum challenge will be yet, or am I too prepared? There is going to be, we're actually just going to take the 20 in 2020 challenges and up them for 2021. So we're going to do the same thing, like either save $21,000, save 21% of your income, or save $21 a month or a week will be the like year-long challenges. And I think we're going to do Snackuary again for January, which is about food spending. because that has been a thing that has changed for a lot of people during the pandemic. So I think a lot of people that might otherwise not want to work on it or not need to work on it may be interested in seeing how things have changed, or have an area they want to just track and find out how much more they're spending. So yeah, you should check it out. You should check out last year's Snackuary if you want to see what the rules are. I had it on my list this weekend to post it, so I will probably do it. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please stay safe this week. I will see you in 6 days for Christmas mukbang. And stay safe, stay hydrated, and we will see you all soon. Good night.